The message came through at 2:43 a.m. I was half asleep on the couch, the TV still playing reruns of Frasier in the background, the bottle of whiskey 3 fingers down. My phone buzzed once, then fell silent. I wouldn't have checked it if not for the way it lit up the dark room like a lightning bolt. And what I read cracked my entire world open with 5 simple words. Just married my coworker. BTW. No name. No emotion. Just that. And then the follow-up. You're nothing, by the way. No punctuation. No hesitation. No humanity. I stared at the screen, still fuzzy with sleep and alcohol. I thought it was a joke. A bad one. Something someone hacked her phone to say. Or maybe she was drunk in Vegas. Maybe it was a dare. A prank. A wrong number. But then her name flashed above the message again. Rachel. My wife of 8 years. I didn't throw the phone. Didn't yell. Didn't cry. I just typed 2 words and hit send. Cool. Then. And that was it. The moment my marriage died was quieter than I ever imagined. No screaming match. No tears. Just a buzz, a lie, and a digital shrug. But behind my cold response was something molten, rising like magma in my chest. A pressure I hadn't felt before. Not when my dad died. Not when I lost my job 3 years ago. This was different. This was betrayal wrapped in smug punctuation-less cruelty. I stood up, bottle still in hand, walked into the kitchen, and set the glass down with a deliberate calm that felt alien to me. My hands weren't shaking, but something inside me was cracking. Not breaking. Cracking like ice underweight, spreading slowly. I opened the laptop. I didn't know what I was looking for. Maybe proof. Maybe a sign that this was all some elaborate miscommunication. But when I logged into our shared cloud account, something I hadn't checked in months, I found the photos. Dozens. Her in a white cocktail dress, holding hands with a man I didn't recognize. Clean-cut, tall, plastic smile. The kind of guy whose parents paid for his law degree and his teeth. Him in a pale blue suit. Her kissing him on the cheek. Her straddling him in a casino booth. Her flashing the camera a diamond ring that wasn't mine. And the caption under one of the pictures? Finally free red heart #married life begins. I laughed. I actually laughed. Like some villain in a movie who just realized the world was burning and decided to enjoy the flames. Free? She was the one who begged me for this house. Who cried when I said I wasn't ready for a baby. Who guilt-tripped me when I worked late. Who swore we were soulmates every time we argued. And now, in the middle of a random night, without a call, without a goodbye, she was posting hashtags like a teenager who just graduated prom. I clicked through more photos. Found one from earlier that night. Her in a tight red dress, one I'd never seen before. Captioned, last night as a single lady. Let's go fire. I scrolled further. Found older ones. Hidden folders. Screenshots. Text messages between her and Greg, her coworker. Turns out, Greg wasn't just a coworker. He was the guy she'd been flying to conferences with. The man behind her sudden gym obsession. The reason she had started wearing lingerie to bed, only to turn away from me an hour later, saying she was tired. Suddenly, everything made sense. Every fake smile. Every deflection. Every time she said, "You're being paranoid," or, "I would never do that to you." Lies. All of it. She was already gone, wasn't she? Long before that text. Her body might have been here, in this house, but her heart was gone the moment she let that man touch her the way a wife shouldn't let anyone else. And now she wasn't hiding it anymore. Now she was proud. Married. Just like that. Like I was never part of the equation. I closed the laptop. Picked up the whiskey again. Sat back on the couch. And smiled. Not because I was okay, but because I knew what was coming next. She thought she'd won. Thought she'd humiliated me. Thought I'd roll over and cry like some broken man. But I had 8 years of receipts. And Rachel, she just gave me the last piece of evidence I needed to burn her entire fake life to the ground. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I spent the next few hours combing through everything. Emails, bank statements, receipts, cloud backups she clearly forgot I had access to. There were hotel bookings under her name, weekends she claimed she was at women's wellness retreats, charges at designer stores in cities I hadn't visited, flights to Vegas. And then there was the smoking gun, a receipt for a diamond ring, paid for with our joint account, dated 2 weeks ago. She bought her own engagement ring. With my money. By 6 a.m., I had already printed everything out. 2 full binders worth of her lies, color-coded and indexed. Not because I needed them for court. Not yet. But because I wanted to look at them. I needed to see it, to face what she'd done without the denial, without the delusion that maybe she was just lost, or confused, or going through something. No, this was planned. Surgical. She'd been gutting me from the inside out for months while pretending to love me. I made coffee. Didn't even taste it. Just stared out the kitchen window, watching the sun rise over the backyard she insisted we remodel for future kids. Ironic. We had a swing set and a sandbox we never used. She made me build them after a pregnancy scare that turned out to be a lie, too. Said she wanted to prepare. All part of the act. Around 7:30, the front door opened. I froze. Rachel had a key, but she was in Vegas. Married. Posting selfies. Then I heard footsteps. Light. Hesitant. Mark, came a voice. Not Rachel. It was her sister, Amber. Amber, the one who used to tell me, I don't know how you put up with her. She stepped into the kitchen, confused, holding a manila envelope. She looked at me, then the folders spread out across the counter. I saw Rachel's post, she said. I didn't know if it was real. Oh, it's real, I said, sipping coffee. She got married last night. I got the wedding invitation via text. Amber looked pained, almost ashamed. She told Mom you two were having problems. That you were emotionally distant. That you might have been, seeing someone else. I snorted. Of course she did. She slid the envelope across the table toward me. I didn't want to bring this, but she asked me to deliver these. Divorce papers. Already filed. Pre-signed. She said all you had to do was sign, and she'd make it painless. I didn't touch the envelope. Just stared at her. Not with anger, more like disappointment. And you agreed to be her courier? Amber looked down. I didn't know what else to do. She said she'd block me if I didn't. I nodded. That sounded like Rachel. Manipulative even in her absence. I finally reached for the envelope and opened it. Inside, legal documents, notarized, typed up weeks ago. Apparently she'd been planning this wedding while still legally married to me. That was interesting. Maybe even criminal. She said she wanted a clean break, Amber whispered. Said you'd understand. I looked at Amber. I steady. Tell her I do understand. Perfectly. She left soon after. I didn't blame her. She wasn't the enemy. Not really. She was another piece on Rachel's board, just like I had been. Used when convenient, discarded when not. By noon, I had made 5 phone calls. One to my lawyer, who laughed when I read the text aloud. One to the bank, to freeze all joint accounts. One to my cousin Jason, a real estate agent. I told him the house would be going on the market immediately. One to my boss, to let him know I'd be taking a couple days off but would be back stronger than ever. And the 5th? That one was to Rachel's new husband. Well, ex-husband. Greg. He answered on the second ring. Who's this? He barked. This is Mark. Rachel's husband. A beat. You mean ex-us? No, I cut him off. Husband. You just married a married woman. That's a felony in this state, Greg. Silence. Check your marriage certificate. It's invalid. Also, the ring she's flaunting? Bought with funds from our joint account. Hope you like fraud charges. He started stammering. I hung up. Sometimes silence is more effective than any threat. I leaned back in my chair, letting it all settle in. The damage was done. But the reckoning? That was just beginning. 2 days passed before she dared to call. Blocked number. Of course. I answered anyway. Her voice came through like it always did, honey-coated venom. Well, that escalated fast, she said, like we were talking about a weather report. I didn't say a word. I thought you'd be a little more. I don't know. Understanding. Understanding. I finally said. Of what, exactly? The part where you stole my money to buy a ring for your side boy? Or the part where you publicly declared me nothing while still legally married to me? She sighed, like I was exhausting her. God, Mark. You always do this. You take everything so personally. I wonder why. I just needed to do something for me for once. You mean you needed someone else inside you? Got it. Silence. Then, ice. You were always weak, she spat. You don't challenge me. You don't excite me. You just exist. Like furniture. I needed a man who made me feel something again. You found him, I said. Good luck explaining to him why the marriage certificate's void and why half the cash in your new bank account is frozen. Her voice trembled for the first time. You froze my money? No. I froze our money. Your mistake was using my name to open those cards. And by the way, I hope your new husband has a good lawyer. Mine's already drafting a civil case. The mask cracked then. You're seriously going to ruin me over this? I'm not ruining you, Rachel. I'm just handing you the mirror. She screamed something before hanging up. I didn't even flinch. Later that night, I poured myself a drink. This time not out of despair, but victory. Quiet, cold victory. My lawyer called the next morning. We've got something, he said. Apparently, Rachel had transferred several high-value assets into a shell LLC the month before: furniture, jewelry, even my father's classic Mustang. She listed it under community liquidation. Unfortunately for her, I still had the original title and my dad's handwritten letter gifting it to me. She forged a bill of sale. Game over. We filed for fraud. And then I dropped the final move, something I'd been sitting on. Remember those hotel receipts? The ones with dates that overlapped with her corporate retreats? I contacted her employer, sent them a detailed email with photos, bank statements, and calendar conflicts. I didn't even have to accuse her. Just laid the facts out. 3 hours later, she was fired. HR doesn't love when you lie about travel reimbursements while sneaking off with a coworker. I never even had to step into a courtroom. She tried texting again. Messages full of desperate bargains, insults, and half-hearted threats. I made a mistake. I was confused. You'll never find someone like me again. Good, I finally replied. That's the point. And the cherry on top? Her husband, Greg, filed an annulment the following week. Apparently, fraud didn't sit well with his shiny reputation. Turns out he wasn't as in love with her as she made it seem. Rachel was now unemployed, publicly humiliated, divorced twice in 1 week, and living out of her mother's basement because the lease on her apartment? I had co-signed it when we were still together, and I pulled my name. She got 30 days to vacate. Meanwhile, I was already setting up a new chapter. Clean apartment. No shared accounts. No ghosts in the closet. Just me, my dog, and a fresh start. The silence was intoxicating. No guilt. No eggshells. No manipulation. Just peace. But I wasn't bitter. Not anymore. There's something beautiful about watching someone try to destroy you and failing, especially when they think you're already broken. Rachel tried to bury me. What she didn't realize was that I was the ground. It's funny what you remember when everything goes to hell. Like the way she used to say, "You don't appreciate me," while sitting in the house I paid for, holding a $6 latte I never drank from, wearing earrings I bought because she once said, "I just want to feel seen." Like the way she used to pick fights the night before my biggest meetings, just to talk about our relationship. That was always her code for, "I'm bored and need drama." Or the way she'd pause when I walked into a room like my presence was an inconvenience. As if the man paying the bills was interrupting the show she was putting on for someone else. But in hindsight, none of that was random. It was groundwork. Slow, calculated demolition. She didn't cheat overnight. She rehearsed it in small acts of cruelty until betrayal felt natural. The part that still made my jaw tighten wasn't the cheating. It was how easily she tossed everything aside, like our history had been some boring prelude to her real life. No apologies. No remorse. Just a text at 2:43 a.m. I hadn't told my parents yet. That was next. I knew my mom would cry. Not because she loved Rachel, but because she believed in the idea of us. We were the couple that made it through the pandemic. The ones who got matching tattoos after year 5. The ones who sent handmade holiday cards with scripted cursive and fake snowflakes. We looked perfect. Right up until she eloped in a white dress and deleted me from her Instagram bio. I remember standing in the bedroom one afternoon, staring at our wedding photo when I hadn't taken down yet. Rachel was laughing in it, eyes closed, leaning into me like she meant it. But now I knew better. That wasn't love in her eyes. That was control. Possession. I took the photo down. Not out of spite. Out of clarity. Keeping it there felt like leaving a wine glass on the edge of a table in an earthquake zone. You learn to secure the fragile things. Or you learn to throw them out. That same week, I got a call from someone unexpected. Her dad. "Mark," he said, low and tense. I heard. I'm sorry. I waited. He used to adore Rachel, always saying she was too smart for the world. "I don't know what happened to her," he said. "She hasn't called me. Not once. She's probably busy crafting a new lie," I replied. He let out a long breath. "She always needed more attention than we knew how to give." "Yeah," I said. "That's probably the only honest thing in all of this." He didn't defend her. Didn't ask me to forgive her. He just said, "If you need anything, anything at all, you were the best thing that ever happened to her." And then he hung up. That night, I did something symbolic. I pulled all her clothes from the walk-in closet, the dresses, the coats, Even the little black clutch she swore was vintage. I packed it all neatly. No rips, no theatrics. Just order. Just finality. Then I had it delivered to her mother's place. No note. No anger. Closure doesn't always look like closure. Sometimes it looks like cardboard boxes and silence. Weeks passed. People started finding out. Friends called. Some were shocked. Others not so much. She always flirted too much, one said. She hated being second in a conversation, another admitted. Funny how honesty shows up after the fall. Then one afternoon, I got a handwritten letter in the mail. No return address. Just 2 lines. You'll never understand why I did it. But I don't regret it. No signature. But the handwriting? Rachel's. I didn't respond. Didn't need to. That letter was a confession disguised as defiance. And I was done with her theater. I folded the paper once, placed it on the grill, and lit a match. It curled black at the edges and vanished into nothing. Just like her promises. There's a strange kind of peace that comes after the storm. Not relief. Not joy. Just a muted stillness, like your soul has gone deaf for a while and it's not sure if that's a good thing or not. I spent the next few weeks rebuilding my life in small, boring ways. I changed all my passwords. Closed accounts we once shared. Got a new bed, because no matter how many times I changed the sheets, I still felt her perfume on the pillows, like some ghost of deceit that wouldn't leave. I started eating dinner at the table again. Just me. No passive-aggressive silence. No fake smiles. No cold glances over salad and wine. Just peace. Heavy, thick peace. The silence at first was loud. Too loud. But then I started to appreciate it. No more walking on eggshells. No more pretending. I didn't have to justify who I was to someone trying to mold me into her idea of a better man. A man who earned more, said less, and smiled on cue. One night, I was scrolling through my phone and came across an old video of us. It was during a road trip to Big Sur, maybe 4 years ago. She was laughing in the passenger seat, hair blowing everywhere, singing horribly off-key. Back then, I thought it was the most beautiful sound in the world. I watched it twice. Then I deleted it. Not because I hated her, but because I didn't believe that laugh anymore. That video was a lie pretending to be a memory. I needed space for real memories now. I went back to therapy. Not because I thought I was broken, but because I didn't want to become the kind of man who mistrusts everyone. Rachel didn't deserve to shape how I treated the next woman who'd walk into my life. If there ever was one. The therapist asked me, "What do you want to feel again?" And I said, "Safe." It wasn't about revenge anymore. That part was over. I'd already torched every bridge she thought she owned. The money? Gone. Her fake marriage? Annulled. Her reputation? Burned. Now I was after something quieter. Something harder. Wholeness. And maybe, eventually, peace. It came in flashes. Like when I walked by the bakery down the street and didn't think about how she used to force us to take couples photos every Sunday morning with croissants in hand, acting like we were one of those curated Instagram couples. Like when I stopped checking her socials. Stopped asking mutual friends how she was doing. Stopped caring if she was miserable or finding herself. She had already lost the only version of herself that was ever real. The one I believed in. And one afternoon, about 2 months after the text that ended it all, I ran into Greg. Yeah, that Greg. He was standing in line at a coffee shop, alone, looking like someone had punched the soul out of him. I almost didn't say anything, but he noticed me. His face drained of color. I walked up beside him, looked him dead in the eye, and said, "Tell me, was she worth it?" He stared at me for a long second, then said, "No." That was it. No excuses. No defense. Just truth, bare and bruised. And for the first time since this all began, I smiled. Not out of spite. Out of closure. Because I realized, standing there with my ex-wife's discarded trophy of a man, that I hadn't just survived Rachel. I had outgrown her. And that was the real victory. A few weeks later, I got a text from an unknown number. "I heard you're doing well. Must be nice." No name, but I knew the rhythm of her sarcasm like the back of my hand. Rachel. Still watching. Still waiting for a reaction she wouldn't get. I didn't reply. That was the thing about her. She fed on attention like oxygen. Take that away, and the fire dies. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt. What I felt was harder to define. Maybe it was pity. Maybe indifference. But mostly it was just distance. The kind that builds not in miles, but in truth. And the truth was, I didn't recognize the woman I married anymore. Maybe I never really knew her. Maybe she was always the kind of person who would trade loyalty for adrenaline, love for convenience, marriage for a cheap thrill in a Vegas hotel. But that wasn't my burden now. My burden was finally gone. I had started running again. The air hit differently now, cooler, cleaner. I used to run to escape. Now I ran to feel alive. No more coming home to cold stares and fake hugs. No more arguments over made-up problems. Just sweat, pavement, and breath. One morning, during a run, I passed a couple walking their dog. She laughed at something he said, leaned into him, and kissed his cheek. And for the first time, it didn't stab. It didn't remind me of what I'd lost. Because I didn't lose Rachel. I escaped her. That night, I sat on my balcony, watching the sun drop behind the city. I thought about all the things I never said when I should have. All the times I bit my tongue to keep the peace. All the lies I swallowed just to believe in something that never really existed. And I realized something that hit me harder than any of her betrayals. I had loved her more than she ever loved herself. And that was the real tragedy. Not the infidelity. Not the manipulation. Not the wedding in Vegas. It was that I gave her real love, and she gave me performance. She could mimic loyalty, imitate passion, fake connection. But she could never be those things. Because she didn't know how to receive love without trying to control it. Break it. Bend it to her ego. She needed a man she could destroy so she could feel powerful. She married one in Vegas. And now? Now I was rebuilding. I picked up my old journal again. The one she used to mock. You and your deep thoughts, she'd laugh, sipping wine and scrolling through Instagram. But that journal held pieces of me she never earned. I flipped to a blank page, took a breath, and wrote. I'm not angry anymore. I'm awake. There was no epiphany. No explosion of closure. Just that quiet certainty that I'd never go back, not just to her, but to the man I was when I tolerated her. The man who questioned his worth every time she withdrew affection. The man who believed that loving someone meant enduring their cruelty. The man who accepted crumbs and called it dinner. That man was gone. And in his place? Me. Fully. Finally. Enough. I didn't plan on meeting anyone new. That wasn't the goal. At first, it was just about surviving, breathing without her shadow in the room. But then the world started opening up again, piece by piece, like sunlight leaking through a cracked door. Her name was Claire. We met at a bookstore of all places, one of those quiet local spots with handwritten staff notes under every title and the smell of old paper stitched into the walls. I was standing in front of the psychology shelf, thumbing through a book I had no intention of buying, when she spoke. That one's overrated, she said, pointing to the hardcover in my hands. Everyone quotes it, but no one lives it. I looked up. No pretense. No performance. Just a woman with curious eyes and a disarming smile. She wasn't loud. She wasn't trying to be noticed. She just was. Present. Real. And I hadn't realized how starved I was for that until that exact moment. We talked. About books. About cities we wanted to visit. About music. She told me she played piano. I told her I used to write poetry but kept it hidden because I didn't want to be laughed at. She didn't laugh. She asked to read one. I didn't give her one that day. But I remembered which one I would if she ever asked again. I didn't tell her about Rachel. Not right away. Claire deserved my attention, not my damage. But I wasn't hiding either. When I did tell her, weeks later, she didn't flinch. She just said, it says more about her than it does about you. And just like that, I felt something loosen in my chest. She never asked to fix me. She just listened. That was new. That was rare. I didn't fall in love immediately. I didn't even want to use the word. But there was something about the way she carried herself that made me believe, for the first time in a long time, that maybe good people still exist. That maybe love isn't supposed to feel like a test. One night, we were walking home after dinner, and she reached for my hand. No fanfare. No setup. Just fingers curling into mine like it was the most natural thing in the world. And I didn't pull away. Because in that small, quiet gesture, I felt something I never once felt with Rachel. Safety. No agenda. No performance. Just connection. I still had scars. That wouldn't change overnight. There were moments I still flinched when someone raised their voice, even if it was just a joke. Times I caught myself explaining too much, apologizing too fast, second-guessing myself in situations I used to handle with ease. Rachel left her fingerprints on my mind, not just my heart. But Claire didn't rush me. She made room. And with every day that passed, I gave her more of me, not the shattered pieces, but the gold I'd forgotten I had buried underneath. And the more I gave, the more I saw myself coming back. Not the man who was betrayed, Not the man who was broken, but the man who survived it all and still had something left to offer. And that's the most powerful thing I've ever become. It happened on a quiet morning, months after the fire had gone out and the smoke had cleared. I was sitting on the edge of a cliff trail just outside the city, drinking coffee from a thermos, legs dangling over the rocks. The sun was crawling up from the horizon like it had nowhere to be. No rush, just rising, as it always does. And I realized something. I wasn't thinking about Rachel, not her voice, not her betrayal, not the wedding in Vegas or the text message that ripped my world open. Nothing. It wasn't even that I'd forgiven her. I hadn't. It just didn't matter anymore. She was a lesson, a scar, not a wound. Something that once hurt like hell but had long stopped bleeding. I'd made it through the storm and found myself standing on solid ground, not because I was stronger than her lies, but because I finally learned that survival doesn't mean staying. It means leaving when your soul is being slowly erased. And it means rebuilding, piece by careful piece, without waiting for an apology that will never come. Some days still catch me off guard. A song, a smell, a memory I didn't choose to remember. But I let them pass now, like distant cars on a road I'm no longer traveling. I have new photos on the wall. Ones where the smiles are real. Ones not curated for approval or designed for others to envy. Just moments. Honest ones. Claire's there sometimes. But not always. Because this isn't her story. This is mine. The story of how I was betrayed and didn't break. How I was discarded and didn't disappear. How I was called nothing and proved that nothing is where every masterpiece begins. So if you're reading this, whoever you are may be in the middle of your own mess, wondering if it ever gets better. It does. Not all at once. Not with fireworks. But with quiet, stubborn hope. With getting up. With choosing yourself. With knowing that the end of their story is the beginning of yours. And sometimes the most powerful thing you'll ever say to someone who tried to erase you is exactly what I said that night. Cool. Then. And then you walk away. And never look back.